like even still to this day, like we'll get emails of like people like buying our like that EP on Bandcamp and like thank you so much, but like don't.
If incidents happen, they happen. The mosh pit is a place of no discipline.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure Podcast. This is an episode that's all Alberta, and I'm very excited to be welcoming a very good friend of mine to the show, Michelle from False Body. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, yeah, thanks for finally having me.
Yeah, finally.
I guess like I shouldn't say finally as in like finally, Spencer, but like me finally, you know?
Just like calling me out at the top of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, I think if anything, it's been the opposite, that I've bugged you a lot to come on the show. And, I think with new False Body music coming down the pipe, now feels like the right timing for everything. But honestly, I've been a big fan of your band and who you are as a person. And I'm just very excited to spend some time with you on the show today.
Right on. Yeah, thanks.
So for the uninitiated or people that might not know who you are, because we got people from all over who are listening to this podcast, obviously there's a bunch of False Body fans that I'm sure that are tuning in, but anyone who's unfamiliar with the band, do you just want to intro what you do in False Body? In
False Body, yeah, I do vocals. The only vocalist. Well, Justin is now sort of starting to do a little bit of vocals like here and there, right. But yeah, ultimately, yeah, I am the vocalist.
I was, at the last show when he just popped that out of nowhere. I was like, oh my goodness, because it's such a stark contrast from your like super high screech to his like guttural lows. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, like when we like just recorded, that was like the first time that we like tried any sort of like extra vocals with him, and like he didn't even know what he was gonna do, and like he did that, and we're all just like wasn't expecting that, but yes.
Yeah.
Like
more of that, please. Yeah
exactly.
I think before we were friends, I remember seeing him when he was playing in Slumlord when they were still a band. This is at the very tail end, but I remember he was doing vocals, but I don't remember it was of that style. So again, it's like,
I don't think that it was.
Scream into this mic and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So there's that.
So like I said, there's some new False Body that's coming down the pipe, so I'm sure we're gonna cover that. But before we get into any of the music chats, Michelle, tradition here to check a bev before we get going. And it's extra tradition for the guests to go first. So tell me what you're bringing to the show. Of course,
yes.
As far as beverages.
Well, I thought like long and hard, and like I couldn't find anything like cool for the Bev King. But I do have something that I've never tried before.
Oh, okay. I respect. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Rise Brewing Oat Milk Latte Nitro Cold Brew Coffee.
Can confirm Rise is very, very good.
Yeah. All right. Right on. Yeah, the oat milk really did it for me. So
it's I have a lot of friends that do the latte. I think the very first one that I had was the mocha version. And that's also very good. It also is in that oat milk vein. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Rise, so good choice.
Yeah. Oh, right on. Yeah, that was the other one I was debating between the two at the store. I figured I'll try that one later. So
yeah, the king of bevs approves of your choice. I'm just drinking a Liquid Death myself, just because it's like finally summer
classic.
Here. Yeah, classic. I feel like it's always that thing where it's like I look back at older episodes of the podcast and I was always bringing these like obscure things, and sometimes I'm like, am I just becoming one-dimensional with this? It's just I have so much in my I think I sent you home with like 2 cases.
Yeah, we got some. Yeah, that like I'm assuming that's your garage, like in that like Endgame video of like it just like pulling up.
It's my parents' garage.
Oh yeah.
They were, I think I've told the story a couple times, and I'll just give you the very short version. It was just we got a pallet delivered, and my parents were not psyched the fact that they were finding out about like an entire flat of Liquid Death. So it was my mission when I was out there to like make sure that I had a ton of friends coming through and picking up as much. But now they're like, no more. Now we want, they've bought into the Liquid Death
right
mindset
on.
a little bit more.
So like, is that palette gone?
They're still kerning through it. I think I still have a few. There's maybe like 8 cases in my closet. But if talking about a mountain of Liquid Death that has like slowly diminished over this podcast is so funny to me, because there used to be so much over here, and then that has moved into the closet, but in the closet it was like stacked. So I feel like by the end of 2022, I think there might not be any left unless I get some more. So we'll have to see.
Right on. Yeah. All right.
Michelle, cheers to you, friend. Really excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks.
Of course.
Cheers. There we go. Yeah. Whoa. Did you hear that?
Oh, the little opening?
Yeah, that was really intense.
I do remember some of those cans that have the CO2 just like packed in it. It's just like it releases.
That was packed.
That was packed.
I thought.
I was like dying there for a second.
You felt it.
I did. It exploded on your end, and then it like hit me in the chest. Michelle, really excited to have you on. Any new guests that I have on the show, I always like to get their like hardcore origin story, how they got put on the path of discovering this kind of strange, loud, chaotic music. So take me way back in time and tell me the first times that you were hearing breakdowns, 2-steps, screaming in general, and we can kind of lean in a little bit there. Go
into that. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like I kind of like found hardcore like later in life. Like I wasn't like, I hear like some of your guests, they're like, I was 13 years old and I was listening to whatever. Like I was listening to like Blink 182. Like I was super into pop punk, like junior high, even like into high school. I remember like, and like maybe you watched this on Much Music, the punk show.
The punk show? I don't think.
Yeah. So like I like watched Much Music all the time, and I saw like an ad for like the show called The Punk Show.
Okay.
And it was like every Thursday at like, I don't know, 10 or 11 at night. And I would just like write down bands that I really liked, and like that's how I discovered Alexis on Fire. And then I really got into like that type of music and like screamo, and like going into high school, that was like the heaviest sort of stuff that I listened to.
Definitely.
And yeah, just sort of like trying to find more music like that, of just like scouring the internet. And one day I came across this little band called Punch, and was just like immediately obsessed, totally resonated with me. And I had never heard anything like it. And then that sort of like opened up the world to like hardcore and like Power Violence and like all those awesome bands. And then, yeah. Now we're here.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. As soon as you jumped on, like my eyes immediately went to the Punch sticker that's on your fridge.
Oh yeah.
It seems to be like the biggest.
How embarrassing. Yeah.
But so let's break down a couple of those pieces. So first off, like the punk show, was that more just like, because I know like it's very funny. The episode that Jess and I just put out, we Disband came up in the conversation. So that was a show that I watched a little bit more on Much Music, but was the punk show a little bit more of like TRL, like they would just play music videos of bands?
It literally was like a half an hour slot of just like random like punk bands. There probably even was like hardcore bands, but at the time like I wasn't really paying attention to that. And then like I discovered like quite a few bands that I really liked from that show. In like my parents' basement at like the middle of the night, them being like, what the fuck is going on down there? Kind of thing. But yeah, it's like I don't like fully remember like what the structure of it, but I'm pretty sure it was just like a half an hour of like music video after music video after music video.
Right.
And yeah, like I said, like I saw like the Alexis on Fire, like pulmonary artery video, and like that sort of opened up the world of that. And then yeah, after the punk show, it was called like Much Loud, I think, which like I couldn't get into that, but yeah, I don't know. That was sort of I guess the gist of it.
Yeah.
There wasn't like or maybe there even was a host. Honestly, I don't even remember. That was so long ago. I feel like maybe they did like little interview snippets of like bands and stuff every now and again, but I don't know. I'm sure maybe someone knows.
Yeah. No, I think it is interesting how like a lot of people in the States definitely had the MTV and all that kind of stuff, but like us Canadians, we didn't have much of that. So it was just like a lot of much music and, you know, that was our version of it. Come here. So yeah, so like, but it was funny how you were saying how, you know, super late at night, and I feel like most kids are either staying up late or something. I remember, you know, one of the early, you know, pushing my bedtime was like me just with my Game Boy playing Pokemon Crystal or something, or listening to my Walkman. But it sounded like you like what initially attracted you to like just having a notepad and writing down these bands? Was it just out of like pure curiosity, or was there something else there?
And yeah, that's like pretty much what it was. Like none of my friends, like even when I was like listening to pop punk and stuff, like none of my friends listened to that, so I didn't really have like anyone to like bounce music off of and like, hey, check out this band, that kind of thing. So that sort of felt like it was like that to me,
right?
And like of course I would still try to show my friends these bands, and they're just like, you're not getting the aux cord kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's I guess kind of how it was.
Yeah, so it was kind of like you felt like you were on an island, and then finding some kind of source of that where it's like, oh, maybe I'm actually not the only one that likes this.
Yeah,
and, that's where you
exactly.
can connect with it. I got you.
Totally.
Cool.
Yeah.
So so we covered a little bit about that, just like the early stages. So what was it about Punch that just went a layer deeper as far as like, oh, like that, like, was it clear to you that it was something totally different, or like what initially?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it just, I don't know, everything about it just like really spoke to me. And like I said, like at that point, I had never heard anything like that. And all the bands that I had listened to up to that point, with like the exception of like maybe one or two, I had never sort of seen somebody who wasn't a dude in a band like that. And that was super appealing to me. And just like the sound of the vocals and like the guitar, just like, yeah, everything about it, I just immediately was gravitated towards it. And like even down to like the lyrics, like related to them. And like, yeah, I don't know, I was super psyched on it. I still am super psyched on Punch.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you know, we can either go down this this rabbit hole, or we can like kind of, you know, hit on it and kind of move on to other things. But I think like purely, I felt like when I was getting into this, it was either like, oh, any female who's in a band is either going to be like a Hayley Williams from Paramore, or like a I'm blanking on her name, but the girl from Evanescence, where it's like,
oh, Amy
one of those.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I can't even like, it's not even important for me to like fact check it, because I don't think I'll ever have her on the podcast. Maybe, probably not.
Put it out there.
Put it out there. But yeah, like I always felt like it's like, oh, you're the girl in the pop punk band that's like having that like, you know, where it's not like super whiny vocals that a dude in a pop punk band, or you have this like super operatic, almost like ability to sing, and then just getting deeper and deeper, it's like, oh, it's just normal for it to be whoever to be holding a mic, and they could sound they can sound super crazy, or they could sound, you know, some like super dark and scary, like a guy would. And I think that was like something that like over time, as I was exposed to more bands myself, it was like, oh, okay. And I think without that exposure, I think a lot of people just stay in that, like, they expect if a girl is holding the mic, they're gonna sound like a Hayley Williams or or something like that. I don't know
Yeah.
if you agree or you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Like it kind of reminds me like of our first show. um Afterwards, one of the guys in like one of the other bands like came up to me and was like, you know, when I saw you hold the mic, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but like I was pleasantly surprised. I'm just like, thanks. Like thanks. Like, yeah, I don't know like what the expectation was there. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, some of those instances just might be people that I sometimes it feels like a two-sided coin where it's like they are being authentic and honest about like how their experience was, but sometimes it's like I kind of wish that you kind of like internalized that and kept that to yourself and then talked about it years later versus straight to my face after I played a set,
Totally. It's like he tried to like compliment me, but it was like a backhanded compliment
Sure.
on top of it,
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we're skipping a little bit as far as like the start of you actually playing in
all right.
band. So like what was the lead up from like, okay, I'm discovering more hardcore music, and I'm seeing a band like Punch that's like kind of like feeling like, oh, maybe I could do that too. Like, so what was the timeline of you being like, okay, now I want to try this? Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like what year, like honestly, like a lot of it has to do with like Lee and like giving me the opportunity to like try to do something like that. Like even before meeting him, like I wanted to be in a band and like I tried to learn guitar and like some sort of instrument. Like I had never really considered like doing vocals because I just never did. But like got discouraged with like instruments and that kind of thing. And then yeah, I met Lee, and right around that same time, there was like Not Enough Fest in Edmonton. I don't know if like you remember. It only happened for 2 years.
Yeah, that
like
that was well before I moved for sure.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was like 2013, 2014 maybe.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And yeah, basically it was like this thing advertised to like women, queer people, like to get together, meet people, start a band, like teach each other instruments. And then at the end of all the workshops, there was like the festival of all the bands playing.
Oh, okay.
And so like the first year I just like attended like the show and saw the bands. And then I was like, next year, like I'm totally going to like the workshops, like I'm going to start a band, like hell yeah. And I did all of that. And that was such a huge sort of thing for me because I have a lot of like social anxieties and like all of that stuff. So I really pushed myself to do that. And sadly, nothing came out of it. I didn't meet people that were into the same music as me, but like it sort of still lit the fire under me to like want to do it. And yeah, like met Lee, and at that time he was in Contention. I guess at this point we didn't really do much, but we basically, it would just be him and I in the jam space covering Punch, of course. And just me trying to like find my voice and like just see if I could do it. And yeah, from there, after like I was comfortable with like, so like Lee, at the very start, he would be literally in the hallway of the jam space and I would be in the like the room because like I couldn't even do it in front of him.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
like you go stand out there, but like have the patch cable running,
yes,
so I could still
this giant cord going like under the door, and then finally I was like comfortable with him like coming in, and then we got like Justin drummer to learn these Punch songs just so we could just I could have the experience of like doing it. And at that point there was no like band like thoughts of making a band out of it. And then like Contention unfortunately like stopped being a band, and then yeah, that's sort of like how it segued into like, well, like maybe let's start like writing songs and like see what we can do with this kind of thing. So yeah, it basically just started as a Punch cover band.
With Lee standing outside so you could be like, let me just scream my guts out without being witnessed.
Yeah, exactly. And like I remember the first time that like Justin came to jam, I was like, I gotta be so cool. Like I can't like show him that I am feeling so nervous that he's here.
Right.
Like, will he notice if I'm like turning my back to him so I don't have to look at him, like
Right.
kind of thing. Like, yeah, it's funny.
Well,
and like, yeah.
I think there's something to be said that where like I feel like every musician has a different thing that they need to be their best, and I don't think that it's as simple to say like, oh, Michelle's just like learning, and it gets better with time, because I've heard of musicians who are like well into their careers, they've put out albums on albums of albums, but they're like, when this person records bass, no one but him and the producer can be in the room together. But like and it's just a proven track record where the entire band will be there, and they could just be on their phones just doing like nothing to kind of mess with the vibe, but he just needs to be so like literally in his own world with no one else there. So and I'm just alluding to this person versus just name dropping them. But I think that is something that's very important to like, whether it's like very early in when you're playing in bands, or like where you realize later on, it's like, find actually what works with you in a recording or practice kind of setting, and don't be ashamed or like think that your bandmates are gonna think you're weird if you're like, hey, like I need this to do, like, and that could be anything from, hey, like for writing my lyrics, like I need like ample, like I need this amount of time, or like I can hyper focus in a week's time, whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So start like again, it wasn't this idea that False Body was going to be this band. It was like, I'm just kind of figuring things out with Lee, and then Justin, drummer, kind of was there just to, because it's really hard to not do a proper band practice without drums. It's like as soon as the drummer cancels, you're like, oh well, I guess practice isn't happening.
Yeah, no jam.
So like, yeah, Contention breaks up, and then when was the idea of like, okay, we're starting this new band, but like False Body to me has always had like a super unique and different sound than anything else in like, not even just Western Canada, but Canada in general. Like I haven't really heard bands of the hardcore space that sound like you. And, most of my friends, when I show them, they're like, oh, okay, there's like tons of like chaotic, like Converge-esque-ness there. So was the plan to be that sporadic and crazy like out the get-go, or did that come with time?
I think I don't know if there was ever really like a plan. Like Lee, it's like probably no surprise, is like a huge Converge fan. Like you can't see, but like over there's a giant Jane Doe flag.
Right.
So that's like a huge influence on like how he writes and what he likes. But like, yeah, there wasn't really a plan of like, this is how we're gonna sound. And like it's funny, like, yeah, like listening to our EP just yesterday, it's so crazy how like Lee was like basically said how he was trying to do more like not melodic, but like trying to do something different than like what he was used to writing, and he just sort of defaulted back to what he likes to write, and that's what he likes to write.
Yeah. So it's very, very funny how False Body is a band that I've filmed on more than two hands, I would say, over your guys' existence. And every time that I put out a set, people are like, where's this band's music? I was like, well, there's an EP on their Bandcamp, but like, as someone who's not even in the band, I'm like, these aren't even the songs that you're hearing in the scope sets. So like how I'm genuinely curious if that felt like, if my channel's exposure was like, oh, like we gotta like get our stuff, like our actual, like the stuff that truly showcases out into the world, or if that was just becoming a little overbearing to a degree.
No, it was good because we didn't have anything good. Like none of us were happy with that recording, like even at the time. And like it was my first.
When was that recorded?
2017.
Oh, okay.
Like almost 5 years ago. And yeah, like at the time, like there was some guy that just had like a deal. So like I don't remember how much we spent, like nothing basically. And it definitely shows. Like it's just bad recordings. And like even like I said, at the time, like we weren't really happy with it. And like I've never been, well, I shouldn't say never, especially at that time, like I hated how my vocals sounded.
Yeah.
So like I couldn't even listen to it from like back into 2017, like let alone now. So basically, yeah, like the plan back then was to, yeah, like try to get something out there, but it just never really worked out that way. But then we were so grateful and thankful for everything that you've ever recorded, because at least, you know, on our Instagram, we don't have to have our Bandcamp. We can have like a YouTube link to your channel of like one of our sets of like songs that we're actually proud of, and like, you know.
Yeah, no, it was always funny because like I think the very first time I caught a false body set was when I had just moved to Alberta, and then there was like a, you know, at the time like Scoped is just getting started, so any show I was trying to get to, and then there was like a 9 band show in
Yes.
Edmonton, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh, this is so much content. And like truthfully, some of the sets like are very, very buried, and you know, they're for those bands if they want to go back and look. But your set specifically like really caught my eye and my ear, and I was like, whoa, like who is this band? And who is this girl with this like neon yellow hair, just like
Yeah.
screaming like her life depends on it. So I think that was like the initial beginning, and then you know we've become friends and like just caught so many different instances, like you guys playing in Vancouver for the DPK Fest, and then you guys playing the Scoped anniversary. Like there's just so many instances where it's just like I was just genuinely so stoked to see you, but then like your band is like one of the examples of like documenting it from its origin, and now it feels
Hmm.
like, you know, now I'm like just eagerly awaiting all this new stuff, which just for the record, I have been sent the link and I have listened to it, and I was like, it feels like
Oh.
it's been well worth the wait of like all the stuff that I've seen live that I've loved, and now it's
Hmm.
like you said, properly recorded.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, it is interesting to like go and look back. And like actually I even this morning, like I was like, when was the first like video that you filmed? And yeah, it was like November of like, yeah, 2017 or something. Like it would have been like shortly after we released that like shitty EP. And yeah, is again, as much as I like hate to like hear myself, it is really interesting just to see how like I personally have like progressed, like not only with my vocals, but just like stage presence and just being comfortable with like the mic, you know, like it's really cool to like see that literally from like the very beginning to now.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think that's something I can really commend you on, is like at the beginning it would be like, you know, handing the mic off to Justin, he would say something,
Yeah.
and I think on the Scope 2 year anniversary I was like, Michelle, you need to start the set, and you did that for me, and I was so happy. But like I have seen you just become more confident and just like own your spot. So like, do you feel like without this band, like that this band has been the biggest driving factor to building that skill set for you? Is that
Oh,
right?
totally. Yeah, 100%. Like absolutely. Like I yeah, totally. Even just like being at shows like around people, like specifically shows that we play, like I still feel when I'm like attending a show, if I'm not playing it, like I still like unfortunately sort of like revert back to just the like shy like girl in the corner. But like at our own shows, like I really feel like confident and like I want to talk to people and I want people to talk to me, and like,
Right.
you know, I want to, I mean, I still don't think I'm great at stage banter in the beginning, but like I'm getting better. I'm at least talking.
Yeah, yeah. It is like, you know, something to be said that like starting a band and then just seeing how that affects someone, and then that those, you know, if it's confidence, if it's, you know, being able to talk to people, if it's like marketing, salesmanship, because you're trying to like organize shows and other deals, like those are all skill sets that you can take into your regular life with like your job, your relationships.
Mhm.
So it's just been cool to Jordan, who produces this podcast as well, like we joke all the time that like sometimes, we have these like parasocial relationships with like people, and then they come on the podcast, and for me it's always like, oh, I'm such a big fan of yours, and they're like, I need to remember that they're meeting me for the first time, so it's like I have to kind of like have this weird thing where it's like I can bring it up to like, now we're more acquaintance level versus just I'm just this random podcast person. But
Yeah.
I think that's the thing where documenting bands has put me at the front row of that band's like where they are at that moment. And I feel like with the amount of times I've filmed False Body, it's just been so like seeing every single detail in the way not only you have grown as a musician, but like the other guys, and like the music and the songwriting. So it's just been really awesome, honestly. And it's whenever people are like, who are the bands in Western Canada that you have to recommend, like False Body is always top of the list for me.
Sick, thanks.
Of course. So
you can soon hopefully actually send them to like a good music like soon enough. But yeah.
Well, maybe
it's like, so
maybe that's a good segue into like, so like you have recorded new music. Do you want to talk to me about how many songs and all that?
Yeah. I think there's 10 songs, I believe. A lot of them are still like really old songs. And like we had the conversation of like, do we just like, and like we have a ton of new songs that aren't recorded, obviously. So like the conversation was like, do we just scrap these songs and just record all this new stuff that like we actually like, well, we still like the ones that we recorded, but like the ones that are brand new, like they're fresh and they're new and like probably represent us even more than these current ones. But we decided like, let's at least like record them just so like we can have them out kind of thing. And there's 10 songs. We did like a music video for one of them. Yeah, just like a quick little thing in our jam space, nothing crazy, but like that's a thing that we did too. Cool. It sounds so good, not to just like toot my own horn, but like it sounds so good, like so I'm very excited to finally have something that like I'm okay with people listening to.
Right. You're like, like keep this buried, but you're like, no, actually listen to this.
But for real. And like even still to this day, like we'll get emails of like people like buying our like that EP on Bandcamp and like, thank you so much, but like don't.
Like I feel like I should give your money back because I personally don't like this release.
Yes, exactly. And so I would not be surprised at like once this new stuff is released that is just like the delete button gets hit and like it never existed.
So anyone who the 1 to 2 people who actually might like it, like make sure it's downloaded because it might be gone forever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. So like for this next release, 10 songs, big body of work. And as a fan of your band, I'm happy that you're not like, oh, those can just exist on the scope videos, because some of those songs, like, I feel like False Body really does a great job on like memorable parts, whether it's like, oh, this is the song with this really crazy like drum fill, and then we go into this, or Lee's got all these like, it's just anytime you play, I don't know what the song is called, but anytime you guys play the song where Lee, like it's the hi-hat intro and then Lee goes, I just like, that's one of my just favorite like openings of just any song. Just like, we're just gonna throw in this crazy noodly part. But I do think that False Body does a really good job of just like memorable parts in like this really condensed amount of time. So so I'm happy that you're putting that on under the mic and it's properly recorded and goes out, and then there's clearly other stuff that's in the works as far as writing is concerned. Is there plans for like doing any like physical release of this of these 10 songs?
Yeah, I think so. Like that, there's nothing like officially like confirmed about that, but like probably. Probably.
Mhm.
I know that Justin V was throwing out at least doing tapes or something like that, but yeah, nothing like that has totally been confirmed quite yet. So yeah.
How confusing is it to have two Justins in the band?
Extremely. Yeah, there's so many just in the music scene. There's so many Justins, there's so many Bretts. But yeah, even when we were driving down to Calgary those couple weeks ago, and I don't know, either Lee or myself was hey Justin, and without even thinking, of course, they're both yeah, and I'm oh yeah, sorry. So generally
you've been in a band together for so long and it's still a problem.
You would think, right? Yeah. So generally drummer Justin goes by Scobes. Or so that's sort of the that's how we do it. But even still, I feel I still call him Justin, or I'll just be hey Justin V. Just so yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I'm I don't think I could ever be in a band with another person named Spencer, because Spencer to me is just a medium amount of a unique name. It's not super out there, but it's not like a John or Matt or Justin
or Justin.
That. But I do remember there was one of my best friends growing up in middle school and early high school. His name was Spencer too, and he was a guitar player. But the difference was I was 6 foot and he was 5'3", tiny, and a way better guitar player than that. Shout out to Spencer Briarcliff, if no way that he's listening to this. But yeah, it's always funny when bands have two members with the same name, and then it's okay, we have to figure out some kind of system here so we're not running into these issues all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, too many Justins.
Too many Justins in the world.
Yeah. Sorry, Justin.
Sorry, Justin. Shout out to both Justins.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit of just more on the lyrics and that kind of role in the band. Because I think, again, with very little music out in the world, there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for me to really dive in and read about what Michelle actually writes False Body songs about. So what is there certain themes for this next release that you're are they all kind of connected? Are they siloed into their own kind of topics? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I would say they're all sort of their own kind of individual thing, but some of them do have some kind of overlap kind of thing. And it was funny when I was sort of not relearning the songs, but just becoming really familiar with them before recording. Not that I wasn't familiar with them because they're so old, but just preparing for recording, there was a few songs in particular that I was I don't love these lyrics. I don't relate to them anymore. I don't want people to read this. So I actually rewrote 2 of the songs a week before recording. And Lee helped me with another one as well. So those ones are I guess more, I don't know, topics that are more fresh to me as opposed to those all other ones. But yeah, it's really interesting to go and read something that you wrote 5 years ago, just to be relax. Whoa.
Oh my gosh, that's so no, there have been times where I've gone back, because I think naturally as a songwriter, I'll write the music and the where I think it's going, but I always love to have a little bit of a say as far as the, not necessarily all the word choices, but the placement of those. And so naturally, if I'm helping with flows and rhythms, I what if we said this? What if we did this? But yeah, sometimes I've gone back and been whoa, I don't think that way anymore, or that was a little bit of an overreaction. But yeah, and it's funny to just talking with so many different people of different levels in their bands are yep, it's the same way, but that's our hit song, so it's we have to play it, and
it is what it is. Yeah.
So yeah, and so do you feel getting to play a lot of the songs that you guys recorded now live and, you know, I was just happened to be there and was filming it, like that helps you really bunker down and be critical about like, is this something that actually matters to me?
Yeah, definitely. And like I guess like that's maybe one of the positives of like not releasing that stuff until now is like I could sort of like I have like a new appreciation for all these songs where like before we started recording them, like yeah, we would play them live and like it just sort of existed and it was whatever. But yeah, like sort of like re-falling in love with these songs and like wanting to make sure that the lyrics were just as, I don't know, good and meaningful, I guess, which is like, yeah, why, like I said, like I rewrote a couple of them. Which yeah, I'm glad that I end up doing because I think that they're actually like better songs now. Like so yeah.
So what is something as a songwriter or a vocalist that so this is a two-parter. What's something that you know that you're like naturally like really skilled at and you're like I have this down on point and yeah, like I have this in the pocket. And then what's something that you really have had to work on a lot in your process? And again, that could be anything from the songwriting to like the actual execution of it, the recording, the live stuff. Like, talk to me about something you feel like you're like, I am naturally good at this, and then the other side is like, what is something that you're like, I'm not, but I have worked towards being better at it.
I mean, it's hard to pick out something that I'm like naturally good at. I don't know. Like, I think like for the most part, like when the guys are working on a new song, even if I don't have lyrics, like I'll already sort of know like what I want it to sound like in my head. And then like I can then write lyrics around it. So like that can happen.
Right.
If I'm good at that, I don't know. I at least like maybe think that at least I'm kind of maybe good at it. I don't know. And then as for like something, well, I'm even still working on it is like now that that stuff is going to be released, like I have such a hard time of like people knowing the lyrics. Like that I really struggle with that. Like I'm definitely getting better with the idea of like this is going to be released and like obviously I don't have to release the lyrics, but like probably should release the lyrics. But like it, you know, it feels like I'm just so like self-conscious of it and like I don't know, just some of that stuff. It feels it's just like here's my diary kind of thing, you know, like which like I'm trying to be better at because you know I don't think I like think about myself being like, have I ever listened to a song and I'm just like, what the fuck are they writing about? Like, I mean, maybe I have, but like, you know, like, you don't, people don't really like really read into lyrics. I don't think that much, you know? So like, I'm trying to convince myself that it's just fine.
Yeah, no. And I appreciate you being vulnerable there because it's like, I think a lot of great bands, I feel like most bands that really like a lot of people latch onto is not just because of the music. I really believe that it's like these lyrics resonated with these people because like, you know, as cheesy as it sounds, it's like the message of the music, like that's what I think kind of galvanizes people versus like, here's this heavy breakdown. You're like, okay, that's cool, but like what's the thing that makes people stay and stick around for like the next, you know, the next song and the next release. So yeah, like I think music should be in that way where it's like you're like putting your all into your music, but then it's like for you it's the double side of the coin is like, oh, now it's like out there in the world.
Yeah, that's something that's like I'm like coming around to, and like even just like Lee, like it took so long for me just to like even show like him what I was writing.
Right.
And then when we were recording, we were like listening to all the tracks and just sort of like pinpointing which areas Justin was going to do like his vocals over.
Sure.
And like I had like a brief moment of like, oh, like he'll have to read like what I'm saying kind of thing. But then like obviously like my bandmates are amazing and obviously like would never be like, what the fuck, you know? So I just like gave him the lyric book and he read it and it was fine. And then, you know, like I see bands like local or whatever, and like, you know, people are like grabbing mics and like singing along, and I'm like, I want that, but like at the same time, you know.
Right. Is there, you know, we don't have to go through song by song because that's not the goal here, obviously. But is there one song in particular on a lyrical side that you're like most proud of how it all came together?
Yeah, there's probably a few. Like one, like the very last song in particular, like that's like one of those like, here's like my sad diary entry kind of thing. But like I really am proud of like how those lyrics came about. And then another song, I think it's like song 9, maybe, it's called Spit. It's just like it's like the one that has like the sort of like breakdowny part at the very end there, like one of the quick songs. Like that one lyrically, like maybe it's just like a very like stereotypical like don't fucking touch me sort of back off kind of songs, but like I'm really proud of like how that song sort of turned out, and like I can see it like in my head of like people just losing it when we're playing kind of thing, like once they know what the words are, you know. Like but yeah, one in particular, like the last song in specifically, like songs that I'm proud of lyrically, I would say that's probably the one of them. Yeah. It's like, I mean, I don't know how much I should go into it, but it's just about like, you know, death and dying and like family members going through it and like, you know, life sort of stuff.
Yeah. And I have always felt better for myself when it's like I've been able to put out the thoughts or the feelings that I've had into a notebook, whether it's physical or on my iPhone, and then that's in the music. And then because there's been times where it's like I've written a whole song for one of my older bands, and that's like, okay, that feeling is now out there and I don't have to hold on to it anymore. And you know, there could be things that change in time that I can reflect on, but at the very least I got it out of my system.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel now, and like why I feel like I'm a lot more like accepting of like having the lyrics out there. Like I feel like I wrote it down, I recorded it, I'm yelling about it, like that doesn't affect me anymore, like it's now for somebody else kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it's like, you know, I know that there's a lot of other vocalists that I'm sure who are listening to this podcast who feel that same way of like, oh, like these precious like truly precious and important words to me that are all like a part of my art are going out there. But it's so funny that it's like it's that, but like, you know, you're not whispering the lyrics when you're playing, you're screaming it at the top of your lungs. So it's like, you know, no one needs to know what this song is about.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So loud. So yeah, I think that's just kind of funny, but it is really cool to see that you well, A, you clearly care about what you're writing about, and B, you're like opening it up to the idea of like, okay, this is going to be, you know, out there, and I want other people to connect with it. If that's important to them.
Yeah, exactly. If it resonates, that's really cool. Yeah.
What's you know, because you know, asking you about like vocal inspirations, I think is kind of just like a whatever question, but is there any like lyrical people that really inspire you and have like influenced you with False Body?
Yeah, actually, I've always liked like Touche Amore has kind of been a band that like I've consistently always liked, and his songwriting I think is always, it's so good because it's so vulnerable, and like he writes, I feel like I write in not as well obviously as him, but in a similar style where like I'm maybe not necessarily like trying to find things to rhyme about. This is just like, here's just like a bunch of lines of like how I'm feeling or whatever.
Right.
I really like how he writes. And then Haley Williams, she wrote like a solo project like during the pandemic, and like how she was writing in there was like super awesome, and like I really liked how she wrote there too. So like I try to you know, try to be a good writer like her as well, specifically like with her solo stuff, because I just think it's so good. But yeah, those are probably like the two that like immediately come to my head. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to write not like cheesy emotional stuff, but like kind of that.
Well, you know, it's that thing where it's like, you know, when like there's nothing worse in your soul when you put out music that you know that you've half-assed. Whether that's like, oh, that guitar take, or the drum fill could have been way cooler, or those lyrics I wrote on the spot, and looking back, it's like, I really wish that I took the extra time to do that. And so, you know, I've learned the hard way where I've put out music that I'm like, this sucks, and I can't, like, I physically can't go back and listen to it because it's like, I feel so disappointed in myself.
Yeah, that's definitely how I feel about like the EP that I've already brought up.
Right. I think you might need to do like at least one of those to be like, okay, I'm never doing that again, you know? Yeah,
definitely. I have had that.
So as far as like the time of recording this, you know, I'm probably gonna drop this episode, you know, well, I shouldn't even say like, if you're like, oh, we're gonna drop this in September, it's like, I actually need to drop this episode soon because I don't have a lot in my queue. But do you guys have like a rollout plan or like anything that's like in the works right now as far as when all the new songs are gonna start rolling through?
Yeah, that's sort of like the conversations that are like currently happening. There's no like date yet, but like soon.
Yes.
Yeah, when is soon? I don't know, but like, yeah, it's not going to be September. Hopefully, so like what, like June, basically. Like, hopefully, maybe end of June-ish, maybe July-ish, something around that time. But yeah, there's nothing specifically totally knocked out quite yet.
Yeah, and especially if you're wanting to do physical releases of any kind, then you know you got to factor that in. And you know, I would love for this new record to be on vinyl, but I hope that doing a vinyl release delays this an entire year because, you know, it's just
in true false body form though. Is like, you know, just like, yeah, let's just delay it another year. Like, you know. But yeah, all of us are like super anxious to just like get it out already. And like as soon as like we got those masters, it's like, do we just like surprise like kind of thing? And like, you know, people like, you know, telling us to like think about it before you just like release it kind of thing. But yeah, like we're very, very, very anxious to like finally have it out.
Yeah, I feel like a full album, you need to kind of like, okay, like let's think about a couple singles that we can do, especially if you've already done a music video. If it's like a little demo or EP, it's like, yeah, like just surprising people and dropping it just that day is kind of fun. But I feel like this to me feels like a very important release for False Body and should be executed right.
Yeah, but it's also I just want it out, you know.
Fingers on the publish button. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, pretty much, honestly, because yeah, it's been like literally years, like
right.
Literally years. So like now that it's like so close, it's just like. Are
you guys thinking about or doing any like shows around the release of it, ideally, or?
Yeah, I think so. Like again, like even just like last night, that's kind of like what we were talking about. Like again, there's nothing like set in stone, but talking about like bands that maybe would want to come do it and stuff like that. So like, yeah, we would definitely do something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think, again, when I think of like bands from Alberta that I think just need more attention is like, you guys are top of the list, and now having that release out would be like, all right, this is what we need to listen to. What is your this was a question I wanted to ask. When you guys were having all these songs like demoed out, did you have any like themes for demo names, or was it just like a song 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, it was nothing. It was literally just song 1, 2. Because like again, like even going back to like nobody knows the lyrics, like I didn't even have song titles for these songs either until like literally like a couple of days before like the masters were happening. Of like, yeah, these songs need names.
I think I remember texting you when I was like, "Oh,
Yes.
I got to do a song, like a drum cam for this specific song," and I would ask you, and then you were like literally naming the song on the spot.
Yeah, that literally happened. Yeah.
Right.
Like I'd be like going, like I've always had like an idea of like which each song, but like because we've never like recorded them, like I never had like the urgency to be like, this song needs a name.
Right.
And like I'm sure every one of those songs, with the exception of Burn the Witch, that is actually still the song name. The rest of them have changed several times. But like they officially have names now. Right. So
I think that's definitely been something that I've learned. Maybe not exclusively through False Body, but just something I've learned with Scoped is like to try to leave it as like these things won't change because they're so factual, but like if something does change, it's like it could either just be changed on the back end, and that could be anything from like instead of switching from like the drum cams to have the song names, it's just like here, like the drummer's name isn't going to change, where the show is happening won't change because someone can't go back in time, and the band name likely won't change. So like let's just put that at the beginning and just run the video versus trying to be so meticulous. So I think that's been something that I've learned probably through False Body. Is like I feel bad for messaging the show and being like, name this song so I can post this video.
Well, no, it's like, but at the same time, it's like I needed people to pressure me because, like, again, there was no reason for these songs to have names. So, like, you know,
right.
And then it's even funny now at like Jam, like, because, like, again, the songs have names now. So, like, we're like making like a set list or whatever, and like we're going through it, and then like I'll be like, oh yeah, the next one is whatever, and like the three guys are just like, how did, like, which one's that one? And I'll be like, and like, oh, okay, yeah, like that.
Every single band I've been in has been, I like, because I'm thinking about all this stuff all the time, and there's always one person who's like, which one's that? And then I have to play the first riff, and they're like, oh, that one. But
that'll forever be Jams, because I don't think at this point like any of them are gonna learn any of the song names. Right. I think Lee probably does, because like he was helping me like figure out the names of them, because like I overthink literally everything, even song titles. But yeah, the Justins will probably never not care to know the names, but yeah, it'll just be like this song or this song.
It's so funny that like anyone who's a fan of a band only knows the song as what it's released as, and the band might not actually know what it is for the entire existence of the band. They just know it as, oh, the one that starts with this, or the one that has this thing at the beginning. That is so funny. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, or it'd be like, I guess like going back to like, I guess like it wasn't necessarily like demo names, but like as we were jamming them, there would be like new metal, like very new, like
very
just
new,
like that. Yeah.
This song's very new metal.
Yeah.
I only asked about that because I think I've talked about this on the podcast a couple of times, but on this latest Endgame release, I named all our demos as Pokemon moves. So like we have a song called Bubble Beam, we have a song called Poison Sting, we have a song called Double Kick, which is literally the most about a double kick that any Endgame song has ever had, which was unintentional. But because we're recording this weekend, we were talking about like I'm bringing, maybe I can move. You see my GameCube down there? So I'm bringing that so we can kind of play in between recording sessions and whatnot.
Oh, right on.
And we were talking about all the games I was going to bring. And Jess, shout out to Damage Control, was in the room just working on some stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I got Smash Bros. I got fucking Lord of the Rings, I got this, and I got Double Dash. And she was like, I thought you were literally talking about your weird video game demo songs again. And I was like, guys, the next release will all be GameCube games.
See, I like that, because like I feel like maybe not so much now, but like up until probably recently, I feel like I was like maybe taking it like too serious, you know, like have fun with it, you know, like don't be so uptight about like, you know, your joke song titles, you know.
Oh yeah, like, and I think that came when I had Sierra from No Right on the podcast, and she off their latest EP, they did all just like produce and like fruits and vegetables. And she had a song called Lemon, which ended up becoming sour. Like,
Oh yeah.
so it's just like, that's what really trained was like, it gets really old just doing song 14, 15, 16. So like, so that's something that I've done way later in me playing in different bands versus like, I don't know. I feel like it adds just a little bit more cohesiveness versus like if I was sending a demo as like my dog shit on my lawn V4 or whatever, like it becomes like a little less like I can't actually remember what the song is actually. So it's like you give it a joke name and then you give it a real name later on.
Totally. Yeah, I will be doing more joke names now.
I'm into that. What is your favorite actual song name of one of the new False Body songs? What is one that you're like, this one is super unique and super cool?
That's a good question. Now it's like, what are the song titles?
Like I can't actually remember.
I don't know. I guess like the song that I sort of brought up before just like sticks out. Like it's just called Spit. Just like, you know, like like that's just like that like just sticks out to me, you know. Obviously like Burn the Witch, you know, it goes with like just like the witchy vibes of like our new like merch and like stuff like that. Like I don't know. I like the imagery of that song title, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I think I like Spit.
Spit's a good name for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, this has been a really great chat. I got just a couple other questions before we start to wrap up.
Sure.
What is the one thing when fans of False Body are listening to your music that you want people to walk away from? Like, what do you want people to get, or how do you hope to inspire people? Which side of that do you fall as far as like when people listen to False Body, I want X to happen?
When I want people to start their own band, because I know how it is of like you want to do it, but like you just gotta fucking do it, you know. Like I remember watching like, you know, like Mortality Rate and being like, I want to fucking do that, you know. Like I want to be that to somebody, you know. Start a band.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that it's not even about anything music wise. It's about the person being like, yo, you can do this too. Start a band.
Yeah.
You just have to.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like maybe like the other guys would say something different, but like that's at least like the first thing that like comes to my mind.
Totally.
I don't know. Maybe like another sort of thing is just like I don't know. I don't know. That's what I'll stick with, I guess.
No, it's a great answer. I love that. Michelle, the last question is a favorite mosh related story that you would like to end with. And that could be something that you did, something that happened to you, something that happened to a show you were playing or you were just attending. Whatever's the first thing to your mind is how we start to wrap up the show.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not like a big mosh person. I feel like when
really?
Yeah, I know. Very surprising to probably everyone. But I feel like I turn into like almost like a mosh mom. Like someone's dropping their glasses and I'm like, don't step on the glasses, like that kind of thing, you know? I like want to make, you know, like phones are dropping. Like I want to make sure that phone is not getting smashed. But yeah, like in anticipation for you asking me this question, and nobody really moshes to False Body, sadly, but I would like to shout out Dan, because from the beginning of False Body, nobody's doing nothing, but like he's like was the only guy like doing anything 100%. And like still is. Like, yeah, I definitely remember like our first show and like just being like, whoa, like there's at least one person doing something, like that is sick. And like even when we were in Vancouver and like he was there too, and like again just like being so supportive, like up front, like just moshing away either by himself or like with another person. Yeah, so Go Dan, go.
Go Dan, go. It was very funny
Yeah.
when we played together a few weeks ago. There's always, again, I don't know the song, but I know the part. And as soon as it comes in, I just look behind him. He's already putting his shit down. I'm like, go in, because yeah, it's like he's a mosh ride or die for False Body for sure. So shout out to Dan.
Totally. Yeah, I love it, and I always have, and it's always appreciated.
I feel like Dan has moshed enough for False Body that he needs his own piece of False Body merch with him just moshing on the back.
Totally, absolutely.
the only False Body mosher. But
Yes.
I also like how you coined the term mosh moms. I've never heard that before, but I'm gonna start using that for anyone who's like, because there's mosh moms, but there's also like those people that are like the go-to people that like the cymbal stand has fallen over, or like someone's strap has, and they're like getting in there. And sometimes I'm like, as the person filming, I'm like, who's gonna be the show mom and help this person? And it's like, I want to, but like I'm filming, and then I have to like pass it off, and it's just like this whole thing.
It's the whole thing.
But mosh mom, that's a term that I'm going to be using a lot more on this podcast because of you, Michelle.
Yeah, I want to, make sure everyone's having a good time and is safe. And things aren't getting broken.
Right.
Like on that last show, like when like the hole came into the wall, I was just like, no, like someone's got to fix that.
When you brought up when people drop their phones, it reminded me when Comeback Kid, when Endgame was playing with Comeback Kid in Calgary, some girl was she got on stage, and I think like she kind of flipped over, and her phone was in her back pocket, and it fell out, and then she stage dived, and Jeremy grabbed the phone, and he's like trying to play and give this phone back.
Whoa.
And then I'm just laughing because I'm like filming this all as it's happening, and then he puts it on the top of his cab, and then like 3 songs later he sees her, grabs her, and pulls her on stage and gives her phone back. I'm like, all right, at least it got back to its owner. So that was Jeremy's mosh mom kind of moment.
Thank God. Yeah, I've seen too many cracked phones and broken glasses, and like that just sucks to have to get repaired and fixed, So like, hand me your glasses before you're gonna do that or something, Like, I'll hold your glasses.
It's gonna be like Michelle at a show with like a giant like Tupperware, and
I'll like have them like all in my shirt, just like everyone's glasses. Like,
that is so funny. Well, Michelle, this has been a pleasure chatting with you. Big fan of your band, big fan of you.
Thank you.
All the links for False Body and yourself will be in the show notes in the description. But if there's anything you want to send the people off with, anyone you want to shout out, or any words of wisdom you want to deem, the floor is yours.
I mean, I will just say thank you to you, because like, I don't think I've already said it in like messages, but like nobody would care about False Body if like you weren't documenting us from literally the very start. So like, for real, thank you. Like, this is from all 4 of us. Nobody would care about False Body if you weren't doing what you're doing. So
well, I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciate the
I'm going that far because that EP sucks. So like, there's no way that people care about us because of that EP. And if you do, thank you. But like, no, for real, it's a huge shout out to yourself.
Well, no, that's
and
very,
your crew, of course.
That's very sweet of you. Never something that I expect, but it's always like, again, I think the feeling is mutual. I feel like there's times where I film bands where it's like, this band already has an audience, and the video is going to take off and do its own thing. False Body videos have always been interesting, where it's like the fan base is so niche because, again, there's not that like signal boost of like music on Spotify or whatever, but it seemed that anytime I would post you guys, there'd be a flock of people who were either finding out about it for the first time. So I don't know, it's always been an encouraging thing for me, where it's like to keep giving that same level of, just openness to any new band, because there could be the next False Body who's just rocking everyone's socks. But Michelle, thank you for coming on the podcast, and
yes, thank you.
I cannot wait until this new shit is out.
Yes, me too. Thank you.